So I've got a Husky 350 here, and this is one that I built, and it's been in service, and it came back because it's shutting off. So the first thing I did was a compression test, and I found out the compression is not great. Now, it's not terrible, so it still may run, but it isn't great. And this is saw number 4 from the video. I think this is the Kafar kit saw, and I guess it was running pretty good, but now it's not. So here's why. And the decompression valve does kind of mess things up a little bit here, but look at that. So that's not the seal. The crank seal is fine on both sides. It's coming from the joint between the case and the riser. That's not good. So more than likely that caused a lean condition, which caused this cylinder head probably to toast. Now I'm going to hope, really hope, I can salvage the cylinder head. Hopefully they caught this in time, where I can remove the transfer from the cylinder head, salvage it, and move on. I don't know though. Let's pull this apart and see. Actually, we can just do that now. So one of the first things that I do is I check the cylinder head bolts to make sure they're tight, that they haven't come loose. That I did a while ago, actually, here in this rebuild. I checked these just to make, yeah, they're all tight. The gaskets, the intake clamp there is good. And the other thing that I checked to make sure is these bottom bolts under here. Make sure those are tight. And they're fine. So the tightness of the bolts is not the issue. The sealant is the issue. So I'm going to have to change what I do. And this is why. And it had been suggested to me, I believe, Tor R from Norway. I don't remember whether it was Arborist site or OPE forum. He suggested that loctite does not stick to plastic too good, and that what you're supposed to be using is probably something akin to 1184. So I had started using this on a few other builds, but I don't think I used it here. I think this is Loctite. I'm not sure. Gonna have to check. So we're gonna pull this apart. We're gonna see. So let's. Yeah, those are in with Loctite. So these do not come out easy. Easier than I'd hoped, but that's not where the leak is. Well, Loctite does work. Yikes. Just use a piece of rubber for the exhaust block off. There we go. So a little wonder bar right in there. A little movement, you got it. Please tell me this is salvageable. The ring is not stuck. Looks pretty dry inside. Now you can remember on my other builds, this falls right off. She don't move now. So this clamp is on there, good. That's good. Question is, are the internals here salvageable? I really hope so, because hopefully whatever in there is salvageable. Clean that up and hope. Let's pull the piston, and then we're going to pull the base gasket. Take the piston out. Fortunately, this piston is cooked. So let's pull the bottom bolts and see if this thing comes out easy. Oh man. Yeah, they're tight. Well, that's not the problem. Tight bottom bolts is not the issue. It comes up a little bit too easy. So far, there's nothing wrong, there's probably nothing wrong with the bearings or the seals themselves. Just the seal at the base here was no good. Oh, I can. Okay. Yes, there's basically no seal there. It definitely looks like I used 515 on this. So I'm going to have to avoid doing that from now on. Gonna clean this up. And start from scratch here. So let's see what happens if I get it cleaned up. So we have proof that Loctite 518 does not work well on the base between aluminum and plastic, but
working on chainsaws.
I am working on chainsaws.
Oh.
Just doing one thing here. Wow. It's going to kind of be difficult to get off here. But I think we can safely say that it does work here, because that was kind of a pain to get off. And that's all well in there, that's fine. So Loctite does work there. So I've just ultrasonically cleaned it, and it looks like the 515 stuck pretty well to the aluminum. But obviously it did not stick to the plastic. So that's where the leak occurred, best guess. So I'm going to clean this all off. This is probably all coated in 515 or 518. So pretty obvious to me that you don't want to use 515 or 518 here on the base, because it don't stick too good to plastic. Wow, that's kind of a cruddy time to come to such a conclusion. So, clean this off and start the reassembly. So I've got this thing fairly well cleaned off. I think it's time to put this back together. I've got the crank assembly The bearings and seals, as far as I know, are fine. I've got the base here, which is all cleaned off, ready to go. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 1184 treatment on this. 3-bond 1184. And let's play. Got my bolts ready, base bolts. So she's pretty clean here. Going to put a nice thin layer in the corners here. I really had trouble before. So it's pretty sticky stuff. I am going to put it on the bearings here. Don't want to get on the crank, but put it on the bearings. On the rubber part. The rubber by itself seals pretty good, so don't really have to worry a whole lot about that. Now we go to insert it. Just a little extra down in here. A little extra at the corners. Now we can goop this thing up. Blue Loctite. Got to make sure this goes in the correct way. Set her down. Put the bolts in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bolts. Not tight. This is not set tight. 5mm on the bottom here. Should be able to watch that scooch down there. And these handle torque, so don't be afraid to do it to it. That's what it needs right there. Now this is the part usually where you go, oh crap, I forgot that brass piece. I didn't forget, it's here. Now of course we won't know too much, too little, all that stuff until we put the whole thing together. Want to make sure there isn't so much down in here that it's going to interfere with the bearings. The thing with the anaerobic sealer, Loctite 515 or 518, it won't interfere with the bearings. It doesn't cure down in there. So I'm not super psyched about using this particular type of sealer in here, but you know, you do what you got to do. So there you have it. That's sealed, I hope. I'm gonna let this cure. Gonna give this a bit, and then we'll I just ordered the piston, so I need a new piston for this. When that gets here, we'll throw the rest of the thing together and actually do the pressure test and see if it holds. Okay, so FedEx messed up the shipping on my piston, but I'm really too keyed up to not try this. I gotta try this. So I'm just gonna put the cylinder head down. I got a brand new base gasket here. I'm just going to put the cylinder head down. But before I do that, I got to make sure the intake is ready to go. Always, 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 before you put the cylinder head down, you need to have the intake on. Now, you don't necessarily need to have the carburetor attached, but you need to have this whole intake piece on. And I did find that the Loctite did work pretty well against the rubber, so I'm going to put a little bit of that on here. So that's about how that should look. And you really do want the band here with this little round thing, helps a lot. And I had one failure because somebody didn't put the nipple in correctly, so you got to make sure this actually goes in and seats properly and you don't pinch things. Just gotta seat. Make sure it's seated, and then you have to work on the clamp here, which is a trick. Now, in order to do this, I like to use my big lineman's pliers for this. And if it isn't going right, you stop and try again, but that went just perfectly there. So, now you can adjust it as need be. Personally, I like my set of channel locks, and I like to squish this just a little bit, just to make sure that devil has indeed grabbed. And then I like to move this so it's up and out of the way. So there you have that. Okay, so now we are ready to put this unit back down. Now, this is not going in permanent like, I'm just doing a pressure test, and the only thing I'm doing the pressure test for is to check the seals here and to check the base gasket union. No piston in right now. And you'd say, wait a minute, why are you checking that before you got a piston in? Well, I'm nervous. So the cylinder head bolts are going to go down to torque, but not with Loctite this go around. Muffler's going to go on with my piece of rubber. And rubber's screwy. It'll bunch up on you and be grabby and do weird things, so gotta watch out for it. You know, I think I'm gonna plug this, so just a tiny bit of anti-seize. So what I've got here is I got a plug instead of using a decompression valve. It's a small saw, so should not be a problem. Brand new plug. So all I'm doing is grabbing the impulse line here, which is very short on these, so it is a bit tricky to grab. Now, this saw has sat for a number of days, so we've let this 1184 stuff cure for a bit. Hopefully she holds. I've got some minor bleed down right now. The question is, where is it from? So you can see we have some minor bleed down there. Not a lot. Whatever it is a whole lot better than it was. But let's figure out exactly where it's coming from. There's a bleed down at the base gasket. I don't know if you can see that. That's pretty good, actually. Pretty good bleed down there. So, but it isn't coming from here, and it's not coming from the seal. Well, it's a good case for using some sealer on the gasket. Now, that level of bleed down, I don't know if it's going to affect anything, but I suppose that's right there is certainly a reason to use at least some sealer on the gasket. One of the issues is here, the gasket is thin. I mean, it's just not that thick in this dimension. So you can have, so it's a good span there to have a leak. Let's look at the other side. Not as easy to tell over here, but there's no leak out this seal. It doesn't look like there's any leak around the gasketing material. So always good to turn the crank if you can. Let's see if she holds vacuum too. Vacuum's pretty steady. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can see that. So that's not bad, especially considering we know we have a leak at the base gasket now. So I think that at least for now the sealant is a winner. As far as I'm concerned, Loctite 515 is the loser, or 518, whichever. So here are the two sealers. The quick summary here is that I think Loctite 518 is just fine for using as base gasket material, metal to metal. It's also okay on the intake, metal to rubber. That's okay. But metal to plastic does not hold. So you risk cooking a piston and cylinder if you use that for that. So after testing just this one saw, it's only one, but after testing it, it certainly looks like 1184 is the gasket material to use for metal to plastic for this union right here between the seals, the bearing cup, and the plastic chassis. Certainly 1184 is the stuff it does appear to hold. So that's great. I'm excited about that. Now I gotta keep making sure my saws don't have trouble, but if they do, I'm gonna tear them down and I'm gonna use this. The other material that has been suggested to me is Durco. Durco is what Steel uses on their saws, which I'm sure that works fine too. But I think for now that I know that this works, I think I'm going to stick with this for now. The one thing I don't like about this is that I do have to worry when it gets inside the crankcase, because it does kind of go everywhere. It sticks to things, and if it gets into the bearings, that's not going to be a good thing. That's not healthy for the old bearings. So consider that when you're applying this stuff. You do have to be careful. If this gets into the crankcase, it's not a big deal because it won't cure, and basically the oils that are there will just kind of wash it away. At least that's the theory behind anaerobic sealer. So I'm going to end this video here. I'm not going to put the rest of the saw together in this video. There's really no point. You have other 350 videos of mine. I think I've proven that this is a no-go for metal to plastic, and this seems to be okay. Another thought is, can you use this for everything? Probably. I do like the idea of this, but in the applications where it doesn't work, don't use it. So, hope everybody likes this video. This is a bit of an emergency kind of a video. I do want to get this out as soon as possible because this would be new information for me, and therefore it's probably new information for everybody else. I haven't seen any other videos mentioning why to use one over the other. So hope everybody likes this, and for those guys that I've built your saw, just keep in mind that you may need to have it torn down again to put this stuff in there. And I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I went on the best information that I had. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe.